Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing very well. In this session, we are going to discuss about grid layout in CSS. That is, we are going to learn how grids are work in cascading style sheets. So let's proceed. Before proceeding actual to the grid in CSS, let's understand that basically why grids are used. Basically, in CSS, if we say the grid layout is a two-dimensional layout systems. It is a two-dimensional layout systems. Basically, that organizes content into rows, or you can say that into rows and columns. It is designed to create a flexible and responsive layout that can adapt to different screen sizes and devices. Basically, if we talk about CSS, then to create a grid layout in CSS, you can use the display grid. You can use this display grid, and this property you should have to use inside grid container element, right? Inside container element, and you can then define the properties. Let's say here display grid for creating the grid we have used. Thereafter grid template columns auto. It means that the columns will be equal in the size. Auto means by default, according to the size of the viewport, they are going to be divided equally. The background color of this container is gray and padding is 15 pixel, that is internal spacing. Now, if you are going to see that inside that grid container, we are going to design grid items. So basically grid items are part that we put inside grids. Now here dot grid item, you can simply say that a class is there whose background color is aquamarine, border is 1 pixel solid, and whose color is black. You can change this border pixels according to the need. Let's say if I put 5, it would be thick border. You can place dash also. So border will look dash. Here I have put solid. Padding is 20 pixel, font size is 30 pixel, and text alignment would be center. This is for grid items. So whenever we are going to use this class grid item, this property will be implemented by default. Now we are simply designing heading one element whose color is green and text alignment is center. Now inside the body tag of the HTML, one heading is there, and after that we are creating some division tag. So you can simply say that one division is there whose class is grid container, and this grid container class is closing here, and inside this grid container class we further have some grid items. We have created 9 grid items here. You can simply see division class equals to grid item. This grid item is nothing but a name of class which we have defined here, grid item. By default, all this property will be implemented inside these grid items. And these grid items are under grid container. So basically for assigning the items, we need to create first container element, and inside that we can differently place grid items, right? Okay, now it was very simple. Now if you are going to see that how these grids are working, then just live run it on live server, and you are going to see that this is how it is working. This is 5 pixel solid border whose color is black, and this grid container is having their background color as a aquamarine, and the container is having its background as a gray. If you are going to see, let's say if you want to put the border not that much thick, then you can put border 1 pixel and just save it and just see the output. Look at the output. Borders are right now reduced, the thickness is reduced, the border is now thin, right? The alignment of these numbers are center because we have already written here text align is center. If you are going to put on the place of solid, let's say dash dashed, then the border would be dashed border, right? This properties you can implement. This is a very simple example of how to create grids. You first have to define grid container, the property of grid container, and thereafter inside that particular grid container you have to define grid items, right? This auto, it means that by default it categorized into three columns, and all these columns are having equal sizes. You can simply see here all these columns are having equal sizes. Correct. The width of this and the width of this, all these cells width are equal. Why? Because we have put grid template column as a auto here, right? I hope it is clear. Now, if you are going to see the padding is 15 pixel here, and if you are going to change it 35 pixel, you can simply see the output. This is the internal space. This becomes 35 pixel now. This padding, margin, positioning, you can set according to your choice, that how you want to look your website up to, right? Okay. Now, next one is a very simple. It is also, we are further enhancing some properties into grid container. Display grid is for creating grid container. And here grid template column auto. You already know auto means that the width will be equal. Background color here is gray. Grid column gap this time is a 20 pixel. Grid column gap, it means that to create gaps between different grids, we can use two important property: grid column gap and grid row gap. Grid column gap here we have set 20 pixels, so the gap between all the grids will be 20 pixel, and the gap between row will be 20 pixel, and padding is set to 20 pixel, right? Then in grid item we have defined some properties like background color, like border 5 pixel solid, like padding 20 pixel, font size 30 pixel, and text align center. And heading 1, green color, text align is center. Here what we are doing, you can simply see that division class, again 9 grid items inside the container. And if you are going to run it, you can simply see the differences, right? This is 5 pixel border of each grid, and each grid is having row gap, that is this gap, row gap of 5 pixel and column gap of 5 pixel. You many times you may visit the e-commerce website section. There you can observe that many grids are there. They want to sell some items and they create grids on the websites like item 1, item 2, item 3, 4, 5, 6, and they put some images inside that, the button property, and many more things you can put, right? So this is depends that what task you want to do. Basically, to categorize, to make many more regions in a web page, you can use the grid property. It is a similar like table, but you can say that using grids you can make it more responsive and more flexible. You can wrap up them, you can overlap them, and there are so many advantages of using grids on the place of table, because on the place of table you can also use it, but if you are going to use grids, definitely it would be more responsive and more flexible. Correct. Okay. Now, if we again come back to here, then let's move to one more variation of it, where inside grid container we have already defined background color, text alignment, padding, and font size. And grid column dot item, grid column starts 1 and end at 3. So column will start at 1 and it will end at 3 column, right? And grid row will start at 2 and it will end at 8. And heading is there, and inside grid container 8 items. So what does it mean? When you are going to run this code, you can simply see that the code which we have written here, that your column will start from 1. So this is column, this is your column. You can simply say that this is your column. It is starting from 1, and where it is ending on 3. So your column is ending on 3, and your row is starting at 2. So your row is starting at 2 and ending at 8. Your row is starting at 2 and ending at 8. It also depends basically on your viewport also. Let's say on the place of 3, if I put 2 here, then what will happen? So you can just look out. This would be the scenario. Getting it? It means that it will start from at 1 and end at 2. So your column property, your column will start at 1 and it will end at 2, right? Two columns we are having, and if we talk about rows, then 8, the grids are 8, right? It depends on your viewport also. If we change to 6, let's say, and on the place of 2, let's say we change here 3, and now if you are going to see the changes, it would be like this. So you can just change the values here inside the grid column item and grid row items, and you can visualize the different regions. It depends on the size of your width pixels, total width of your device. It also depends on the browser which you are running. It also depends on the version of browser and the version of compiler or interpreter you are working on, right? So basically, just by manipulating the values of rows and columns, you can visualize and you can create different grids according to your choices. You all need to you do is that you need to just need these values to be changed and just see what exactly you are going to look and what exactly you are going to look as output, right? You just need to play with it and just change the values and see the output. If you visualize the output that it is the exact output that you need, then you can save that program, right? So basically grid is this, right? So I hope that you actually got that why basically we are using it. Now if we see that we have learned about these grids, and if we talk that grid layout is a very powerful tool and for creating flexible and responsive websites, right, and for responsive layouts as well. And it is a great alternative. It is a great alternative to traditional layout techniques such as floats or absolute positioning. It is supported by modern browsers and can be used in conjunction with other kind of layout techniques such as flexbox to create complex layouts. So it depends that what kind of websites you are pursuing with and what kind of web development you are doing. So it is a very important and powerful tool which you can use. Many different properties are there. You can refer W3 schools for more properties and for more attributes inside it, right? So I hope that the basics are very much clear to you, that what you need to do exactly inside grid. This should be clear to all of you, right? Further, if you are having any doubt or any confusion or any query, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much, guys. Have a very nice day. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.